Welcome back, guys. This is part 2 of section 6.1. We know that angles are commonly measured in degrees, and we have even seen degrees expressed in decimal form, right? You might have seen something like this, 16.5 degrees, or you might have seen an angle with 2 decimals, or 2 numbers in the decimal. There's an additional, more precise method of subdividing a degree down into its smaller components, and this is what's called DMS. DMS stands for degree, M stands for minute, and the letter S stands for the word second. And so the way DMS works is that the degree will be divided into 60 equal parts called minutes. So 1 degree is equivalent to 60 minutes. You could almost think of the degree as like an hour. And another way we can express this is like so. And the minute can be further divided into 60 equal parts, which we call seconds. And so here we can say 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. Or we can write it using this notation, and they mean the exact same thing. And from this, I can also conclude that 1 degree is equal to 3,600 seconds, which can be equivalently written as this. And so when you see an angle in DMS, it might look something like this. And the way you would read this is you'd read this as 45 degrees, 24 minutes, 30 seconds. And so DMS is often used in relation to latitude and longitude. It can help you find the exact location of a star, let's say, or even the precise position of a boat if you're at sea. So we're going to look at a couple of examples where we convert an angle from DMS into decimal degree form. And then we're going to convert a couple of angles in decimal degree form into DMS form, okay? So let's go into our first example. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to convert each angle to a decimal in degrees. Now, before I put up an example, I just want to briefly mention 1 degree is 60 minutes. 1 minute is 60 seconds. And 1 degree is 3,600 seconds. So for our first example here, we're going to be given 61 degrees, 42 minutes, and 20 seconds. Now, you don't have to do it this way, but for my first example, I'm going to actually just write this out in words. 61 degrees, 42 minutes, and 20 seconds. And so what we're going to do here is 61 degrees is already in degree form. The 42 minutes and the 20 seconds need to be converted into degrees, okay? So 61 degrees, I don't have to do anything with that. But I'm going to add that to 42 minutes, okay? And so when I have 42 minutes, the question is how many degrees is that? And so what we're going to do is we're going to be using this identity here to convert the minutes into degrees. And the way we're going to do that is by multiplying 42 minutes by a ratio, where I want to make sure I have the 60 minutes on the bottom, which means I'm left with the 1 degree on top. And the idea here is that you want the units to cancel out, right? So the minutes will cancel out, and so I'm left with degrees. And then from there, you also want to take the 20 seconds. And this time, we're going to be using this ratio here because I want to go from seconds to degrees. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by another ratio. And because I have seconds, I want to make sure I multiply it by something that has seconds on the bottom, which means I'm left with 1 degree on top. And just like before, the idea is that the seconds will cancel out. So from here, what you're going to do now is you're going to put this in your calculator, 61 plus 42 over 60 plus 20 over 3600. And when you put this in your calculator, rounding it to 2 decimal places, you should get about 61.71 degrees. And so what we did was we took an angle in DMS form and we converted it into decimal degree form. Let me put up number 2. Here we're going to have 73 degrees, 40 minutes, and 40 seconds. Let's see how you guys do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to not write the words degrees, minutes, and seconds. So I'm going to leave it as 73 degrees plus, now here I have 40 minutes, and I want to convert that into degrees. So what I'm going to do is multiply it by 1 degree over 60 minutes. And the idea is that the minutes will cancel each other out, so I'm left with degrees. And then with the 40 seconds, I'm going to multiply that by another ratio here. This time it'll be 1 degree over 3600 seconds. And the idea, once again, is that the seconds units should cancel out, and you're left with degrees. So in the end, I'm going to put this in the calculator, 73 plus 40 over 60 plus 40 over 3600. And if I put this in the calculator, you should get about 73.68 degrees. Hopefully you're able to get the answer for that. If you made any mistakes, make sure you make note of what you did wrong and continue to learn from them, okay? So the last example that we're going to be looking at is we're going to do the reverse now. We're going to convert an angle into DMS form, okay? And just keep in mind when you're doing these kind of problems, you have to make sure that you really memorize all 3 of these, okay? Because it's going to be very useful. So again, think of 1 degree as like 1 hour, and hopefully that'll kind of help you remember this, okay? So let's start with our very first example here. We're going to be starting with 12.456 degrees. And so again, our goal is to convert it into DMS form. Now, when you notice here is that we already know the degrees here. I know this is 12 degrees. You're just looking at this whole number right here. Right, that's how many degrees I have. Now, everything after that that's in the decimal, that's going to be your minutes and your seconds, okay? So what we are going to focus on now is the degrees, right? The 0.456 degrees. And we're going to try to figure out how many minutes is that, right? How many minutes is 0.456 degrees? And so what we're going to do is we're going to multiply it by a ratio where I want to put degrees on the bottom and minutes on top. So if you remember, 1 degree is equivalent to 60 minutes. And again, the idea is you want the degree units to cancel out, right? And so in the end, you're going to put this in your calculator. And when you do, you should get 27.36 minutes. So just like before, I know that this number here, 27, represents the number of minutes. The question is, how many seconds do I have? So what we're going to do is look at the fact that we have 0.36 minutes. And we're going to figure out how many seconds that is. So here we're going from minutes to seconds. So you want to make sure you put the minute on the bottom. And we know that 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. And again, the idea is if I'm starting with minutes, I want to multiply it by a ratio that has minutes on the bottom, so that way the minutes cancel out. When you put this in your calculator, you should end up with 21.6 seconds. Now, for this one, we're going to round it to the nearest second. So I'm going to just say this is 22 seconds. And so those are my seconds. So in the end, we started with 12.456 degrees, And this is exactly the same thing as 12 degrees, 27 minutes, and 22 seconds. And this is my answer. So hopefully you see that this structure is a little bit different than the previous problem where we first want to figure out the number of degrees. And then once we know the number of degrees, we're going to be looking at the decimal portion of it to figure out the number of minutes next. And then after we know the number of minutes, we're going to look at the decimal portion of that and then use that to figure out the number of seconds. Let's look at another example. Here, we're going to have the angle 29.411 degrees. I want you to convert this into DMS form. So once again, degrees, minutes, seconds. I know that I have 29 degrees, right? Just because based on that. The question now is how many minutes and how many seconds do I have? You want to look at the 0.411 degrees, and we're going to convert that into minutes. And the way we're going to do that is multiply by a ratio. 1 degree is equivalent to 60 minutes. If you put this in your calculator, you should have got 24.66 minutes. And so what this tells me is that I have 24 minutes. From here, we want to figure out the number of seconds. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the 0.66 minutes, convert this into seconds. 1 minute is 60 seconds. Carefully multiply that out, and you should end up with 39.6 seconds. Rounding it to the nearest whole second, we'll just say this is 40 seconds. And so my final answer here would be 29 degrees, 24 minutes, and 40 seconds. Hopefully you're able to get that right. This is what we call DMS form and decimal degree form. Make sure you know how to go back and forth.